Hey, what's going on, everybody? Christian Yeki here. All right, today I've got one specific thought, one specific question for you guys to answer, and this is a deep one. So, what are your 20s meant for? I've been thinking about this for a while, and I've just been and just listening, reading, and hearing other people's perspectives. It's been pretty interesting on the idea of, what are we supposed to be doing with our time and life, these different seasons, these different ages. So what I've been thinking about is, what are our 20s really meant for? And again, it's a lot different in today's world than it was, back decades or much less scores or centuries ago. So over time, it's changed in where we are, how people are, maturity levels, different times of maturity of how long it takes us to, some are more mature at 15 than some people are at 30 in today's world. I know some of those kind of people where it's like, you got a teenager who's got, a lot more wisdom and self-control than people who are, much older in today's world because they're all over the place in their head. They haven't figured some things out. And again, it's part of life and so it happens. But the idea is, what are we doing in our 20s? What are they meant for? And let me just throw this idea out there for you guys and see what y'all think about it. Our 20s are meant for us to be focusing on building ourselves up. It is meant to be intentionally, now, obviously, it should be done our entire life, and it should be going on whenever we're in our teens. Like we should really be spending that time as teenagers, especially when you're at home. You don't have all these responsibilities. You don't have a mortgage. You don't have, probably a car payment. You don't have a job. You don't have a lot of things that take a lot more responsibility. And that's, when you're growing up and you're teenagers. But, whenever, if that doesn't happen, let's just focus on the 20s. In your 20s, you should be focusing much more on building yourself up, on how are you physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, financially. How are you working on yourself, building yourself up? Are you going to the gym? Are you eating healthy? Are you taking care? Can you take care of yourself? Like not just can you eat food and whatnot, can you actually take care of yourself in a proper way? Can you actually cook your own meal? Do you even know how to cook a basic meal? Do you know how to do your own laundry? Can you actually, you know, take care of your finances? Do you even know how to do that? Or do you just say, I'm going to make this much money, with my next paycheck, so I'm just going to go spend as whatever I need to or want to and not think about anything else. Are you spending that time in the word of going, all right, I need to work on myself. I need to find out who I want to be, and I need to work on my relationship with God. So I need to spend that quality time in the Bible. Friends, work, whether you want to start a business, whether you want to, go do anything, it takes time to work on it. And it's hard to do that with, other people being in the picture because then you need to be giving that quality time to other people. So, so in this case, for example, searching for, that spouse, that future other half of you. And it's not that there's anything wrong with that. Obviously we're supposed to get married and have kids and families, but whenever you're not able to focus on what you're supposed to be able to do, especially in the beginning, like when you're working on yourself, we're thinking, oh my God, I know what love is, and I'm only like 16 years old. It's a high school crush and blah, blah, blah. It's like, that's what I know what I want to do. I just want to get married. And it's like, great, but you have a lot to do before you get there. So what are you going to do before you get to that marriage stage of being able to do anything? Because here's the thing, in your teens, whenever you're in even your early 20s, you don't have much to offer. I know that's probably a very controversial thought and topic in this industry. Everyone's like, oh, just be who you are and love who you are, and that's all you need. And I don't believe that in the slightest. I really don't. I believe God loves us and everything, and loves us as we are. But again, we're still sinful, so we still need to work on ourselves to become better. So if we were good just as we are today, and we never needed to change, we never needed to get better, then I see that as being a fallacy because it's not true. We need to be getting better. We need to be progressing. We need to be putting in that work to grow ourselves, whether that be physically, mentally, or spiritually. So I know that's a big different topic in today's world with different people and different groups and blah 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 blah. That just happens to be mine, or at least a very small snippet of that idea. So spending that time in your 20s to focus on building yourself up because no one wants just this one same thing. Nothing changes, nothing gets different, nothing gets better. You want to be changing, you want to be growing, you want to be getting better. You know, in every category. You want to be spending that time with God and getting to know Him more. That only comes through actually doing the work of reading, of praying, of worship, of actually taking into practice what you learn from the Bible. You need to be getting better physically. That means you have to actually stop eating like crap. You have to actually go to the gym. You have to actually get proper sleep and let your body rest. You have to actually stop, consuming horrible things and start consuming really good things to make yourself physically better. You need to stop listening to, whatever type of dumb, crazy stuff that's going on in the world that you start listening to and believing and accepting to be doctrine. You have to cut out the bad stuff and start putting in the good stuff, and then you will think better. You will think more clearly. You will have more positive thoughts and interactions, and all this stuff works with each other. So you have to cut out the bad so you can start implementing the good. It's a very simple concept of that, of working on yourself. Do you even know who you are? Like most people, most people don't know who they are. And it sucks to not know who you are because now you're just trying to play anyone you can that you look up to or like, and you're trying to act like that person, but it's not who you are. So you got to find who you really are and what your combination is of all these aspects of life, your interests, your beliefs, your beliefs, your interests, your hobbies, your morals and values. You got to find out who you are, what you believe, and what you hold dear, that you're like, this is who I am. Identify as this thing. Like who is that? Is that in Christ, or is that in money, or is that in the world? Is that in this music? Is that in porn? Is that in something that's not of God, or is it something that, or is that it, or is that God? So finding out who you are and working on yourself, because no one knows it all, not you, not me. As much as I like to think I know a lot, I know I don't know that much. And because there's just so much information out there, and the more I learn, the more I know I just don't know that much of anything, because there's just so much information out there. So take this time in your 20s and be building yourself up. Because it's just you're focusing on yourself, you're working on yourself, then all you do is build yourself up. And then you learn more, then you can apply those new things here, there, and other places, blah, 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 blah. And just keeps building. It's just a bigger, bigger, bigger domino effect of, you just keep building and growing, and you can keep knocking over bigger and bigger obstacles and barriers and things that get in your way in life. And you can become who you need to be and who you should be and who you were called to be. So some things that I like to think about with this is Alex Hormozy has one called "The Heaviest Things in Life Aren't Iron and Gold, but Unmade Decisions." The reason you are stressed is because you have decisions to make and you're not making them. So I mean, I like that one because it's saying exactly what's going on. Is that everyone's so scared, so we don't want to make these decisions because decisions require responsibility and accountability and self-sacrifice and all these things that are scary. And if we feel like if we just push them off, then we won't have to deal with them and we won't have to suffer the consequences and whatnot. But here's the thing, you're going to suffer the consequences regardless. Whether you make them or whether you don't, you're going to suffer something in some way. You're either going to, make a right decision and then great, or you make a wrong decision. It's like, and everyone thinks it's bad when you do something wrong or mess up. It's like, no, you learn. So then if you mess up or do something wrong, then you learn and now you can apply that to your future life. So making decisions, I like that one is that there's decisions to make, there's responsibility to learn, there's self-sacrifice that has to be, you have to adapt that mindset of of accepting self-accountability and knowing that, hey, if I make this decision and it's right, great. If it's wrong, I still got to take the heat for it, and that's part of life. So the idea of, again, spending your 20s working on yourself. Abraham Lincoln has one that goes, give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first four sharpening the axe. And the idea behind that is that you are spending the majority of your time getting prepared and ready for what is to come. The main thing is cutting down a tree. Well, to cut down a tree, you have to have an axe. Not just have an axe, but it needs to be sharpened. If you have a sharper axe, then it's going to do a better job, get done faster, get done easier. It won't take as much out of you energy-wise to chop down the tree if the edge is sharp. Take a dull, I mean, if you've ever split wood or ever cut down a tree with an axe, it takes a long time regardless. You do it with a dull axe, it's going to take you a really, really long time, and you're going to get gassed out. You're going to every time. But if you have a much sharper axe and you have to do less swings, less energy, less of everything, but you put in more effort to prepare for the big event, now you can get that job done much easier than before. So just preparing to get ready for what that big thing is that matters. Like it's like I want to do this thing. You want to get married? Okay, well it's easy. You can just go find anyone who's willing to get married to you. That's not hard in today's world. You just go on the side of the street and just, people are just hooking up all the time. They get married and they're getting divorced like 5 minutes later. But if you want to do it the proper way, that means you have to know someone for months and years beforehand to know who they are, to know their values, to know if you guys have the same hobbies and if you guys actually believe in these same things or not, So there's a lot that goes into it. You want to get a job, good job at some place, they're not just going to hire you because you're like, I wanna. It's, do you have training? Do you have the skills? Have you put in the time and effort to even understand the knowledge that's being implemented in this place? So, pretty sure I get, you guys are getting that point. Cicero is got one. More is lost by indecision than wrong decision. Same thing like Alex Ramosi. We're not making the decisions. And if we freak out and live in fear and allow indecision to overtake us, then you're not getting anywhere. You're standing still. You're staying in a solid place, or not solid place, but you're standing still in a static place, and you're not getting anywhere. You're not getting further because you're going to get further every step you take. But if you stand still, you're not getting anywhere. And people are just standing still in so many places because they're just so scared of doing something and thinking that somehow everyone who's a big movie star and Hollywood actor or music artist or any of these things, they're acting like people, those guys didn't spend their entire lives dedicated to learning and becoming something, people who wrote songs. It's not like the first 100 songs that they wrote were great. They wrote hundreds of songs probably beforehand and they sucked. And they eventually learned and got better over time through failure. You can only get to success through failure. There's no other way. So, again, guys, for you in particular, I like John Eldridge has a good one. He says, every man is a warrior inside, but the choice to fight is his own. Are you willing? Do you even want to be a man? Do you want to be an actual man? That doesn't mean, as I've talked about before, that means you're 18 years old and a male in this country. Like that's what they believe a man is in today's world. It's you're not. A man is going to be someone who's much, much more, does much more, has and is much more of an individual, and that's going to come through pain, sacrifice, suffering, delayed gratification, making decisions, suffering through the consequences, and learning and growing. But you have to be the one to decide, do you want to grow up? Do you want to be a man? Do you want to achieve certain things? If so, you got to take a step forward. Even if it's the wrong step, take one forward. And then when you find out an error, you're like, yep, nope, this is the wrong direction. Change direction and then keep moving forward. So again, I like this one. This is Proverbs 16:3. Commit your works to the Lord and your plans will be established. So as what we're doing in life, whatever your hobbies are, whatever your uh, career may be, whatever you might like and be interested in, blah, blah, blah. Are you putting God first? Are you saying, all right, God, and what I'm doing here, I want it to glorify you. I want it to, to be able to be good and pleasing and helpful to others and just make you happy, right? Be pleasing to you, Father. Put God first in the center of everything you do, and He is going to guide you and help you and bless you during this time. Like He will. If we put God first, He will establish our plans. All right. Ecclesiastes 9:10. Whatever your hands or whatever your hand finds to do it with your might. So if you're going to do something, then be committed to it. Do it. Follow through, even if it's wrong, and even if you mess up, and even if it all comes to failure, comes crumbling down on top of you. It's okay. Now you learn from what you did wrong, and you try again. And 1 Timothy 5:8. But if anyone does not provide for his own, and especially for those of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. Heard this one my entire life growing up, and different interpretations on it. Mine is, it doesn't, you're gonna mess up in life. There are millionaires who normally most that I've heard of got people who are millionaires, they end up going bankrupt at some point. All different types of rich people, they end up going broke because it's a learning game, it's all numbers and blah blah blah. So even if you mess up in the future, if you don't do well, say you're financially successful and then you become bankrupt and then you're having to start again at the bottom. That happens. I wouldn't say or believe that to be as God looking down on because you're trying and you're working. But when someone just goes, and in today's world, we're just like, oh, I'm 16 and in love and I just want to get married or, hook up more likely in today's world is how it goes. And they're like, I just want someone to make me feel something. I just want this acceptance of who I am from this other person. And so I just want to get into a relationship as soon as I can to get that feeling from this person, which they can't really give you because you have to get that from you. You have to get that from God. So you have to be putting in a whole lot more work than just being like, all right, I just want to go get married. I just want to go, hook up with someone, have a kid so I can have that family. And no, taking care of them, being the best version of you that you can be, again, being like I said in the beginning, being physically, mentally, emotionally, psychologically, financially, spiritually, being ready, being capable, being competent, being prepared. When you are able to spend your time building yourself up and becoming who you're meant to be and able to be, then you can attract the who it is that you're looking for. And you can, and then whenever you've put in that much time, effort, energy, again, you're putting in years and years of dedicated time into yourself. Then you obviously learn a lot more, you become better, and then you understand, all right, what do I value? Okay, now I used to think I valued this. Now I understand I actually value that. I was looking for these things over here, but I realized that's wrong because I was lost in all these areas. But now I understand that this is what I'm really looking for. So when you put in that time and effort and energy and you're ready to build a home for your family, then that's how I envision this being done properly is you building yourself up because as a man you got everything, you have the whole weight of the world on your shoulders. You have a lot of things to do. So with doing that, that's going to take being prepared and getting things ready. And that again, that has such a broad meaning of so many things that need to be done. That's why it takes so long to get prepared and ready and to learn about what needs to be done, who you need to become, what it takes to get there. And again, people spend years and decades, trying to figure this out. So getting ready, being prepared before you have the family is kind of how I envision this. Because whenever you just get into a relationship or just have a family and you're living on the bare minimum, and it's like, oh, I can put food on the table and I can have a roof over the head. It's like a homeless person can do that. Okay. That can happen anywhere at any time by anybody. But can you emotionally take care of your family? Can you spiritually guide your family? Can you actually financially take care of your family so that they're, not just having to get by with the bare minimum and living paycheck to paycheck, which obviously drains everyone in every way that you possibly could be. But there's so much more than just this bare minimum that we've been living by in this world, and I hate it. That we're just like, what's the bare minimum I have to do? Okay, I just want to get by that. It's like aim for the top, and you'll aim much closer to, or you'll land much closer to the top if you aim for it. But if you aim for the bottom, you will always fall short than the bottom. So it's just things like that that I believe is like what our 20s are meant for, guys. You have so much work to do and there's so much to learn, there's so much to understand, there's so much to figure out, and you got to find out who you are, what direction you're going in life. Just honestly, what's your identity? Have you even found out who you are and who that's in? God or porn? It's one or the other in today's world. Can you take care of yourself? There's so much that you have to do. And I believe that's what we're supposed to be spending this time in our 20s and particularly doing. Now, obviously, if you have a great father and he's able to be teaching these things when you're a kid and you spend your entire teens doing it, much, much further ahead of the game, that's very rare. Honestly, I don't even know who I know that actually is in that stage. Maybe a few people that I know whose dads actually spend that time with them. But the vast majority, they don't, and not to the degree that they should, because we should not be grown up at 18. We should be taught much, much earlier, and we should be learning our entire life. But in today's world right now, it's, hey, let's spend this time in your 20s, focusing on you, building up who you need to become so you can be that person for that wife you want to have. build yourself up because there's a lot that goes into it. Again, I have a different viewpoint on that than a lot of other people in this industry, perhaps. Some in the Red Pill community agree with it, maybe some don't. But anyways, the idea is spend the time working on building yourself up into being who you should be, who you could be, and who God's called you to be. And then that will be the best version of yourself. And then you can have a much better guideline on where you need to be going in life. And then you just keep learning from there. So, anyways, that's my thoughts today, guys. I hope that was able to give a little bit of clarity. Maybe that stood out to someone in some way. But anyways, I hope the best for you guys. Much love, and I'll see you guys next time.